Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet&Good Torah. So today we're going to learn Parsha Lech Lecha. We're going to learn about the lives of Avraham and Sarah, Abraham and Sarah. And we're going to see that Avraham, in some ways, was the world's first scientist, which is a strange way to describe him. We don't really talk about him like that, but we'll see why that may be an accurate way to describe him. And we'll see how both of them, they changed world history more than any other two people in the history of the world. And they're not often given credit for it now, but they had a major effect on world history. And we will learn about the concept of Maisa Avos Siman Labani, which is interesting because the lives of Avraham and Sarah, and Yitzhak and Rivka, Isaac and Rebekah, and Yaakov, Leah and Rachel, Jacob, Leah and Rachel, that their lives, what happened in their lives, is kind of a clue, like hints to what would happen all throughout Jewish history and world history. So we can get a little understanding of what's going on now. And it seems, right, it seems very confusing the times we live in right now. I mean, there was this quote unquote big election in America and everyone was like up in arms, if Trump won, the world's going to end, or if Kamala Harris won, the world's going to end. And it was like, the apocalyptic election. But, the world goes on. And we see crazy things like, we see like this pogrom or attempted pogrom yesterday in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. And then just this ongoing war between Iran using its proxies of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and all that attacking Israel. And then the sad state, we still have over 100 hostages still in Gaza. B'ezrat Hashem, we can finally see freedom for these poor people who have been kidnapped in these horrible conditions and tortured, and it's just, the world's basically silent. So what's going on? I mean, the world seems very confusing right now. And what did Avraham do? What did he do to change the world so much? So let's go back a little bit to the beginning. We'll catch up here. So we'll start with Adam and Chava. They had a decision to make. And at first they lived in a very different world than we live in. They were directly created by Hashem. They were the only two people in the history of the world that are created directly from Hashem. Everyone else is in this process of Hashem's really creating everybody. But he allows like the husband and the wife to be involved in the process. And everyone else is born, created that way. But they were directly created, and they lived in a different world. They lived in a world that was only emes and sheker. They saw the world that there was only truth or lies, and they didn't live in this world of Eitz Das Tovara, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So that's the world we're living in. So what are both these worlds? So they had a choice. Those two trees, but in some ways, a lot of Meforshim, a lot of the commentators say that they're the same tree. And the main tree is the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life, which is the Torah. And that's the blueprint for all of creation. That's how everything works. That's the spiritual science that dictates how the physical sciences work. So then there's this other view of the world. They can see the world through the lens of the Eitz Das Tovara, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that's the world we're basically viewing the world through a lot right now, and it's knowledge of good and evil. And then all of a sudden, instead of seeing clearly what's true, what's a lie, we just have this mixture of good and evil, and then it becomes very confusing. And now evil becomes internal to us. We have the Yetzer Hara inside us, the Yetzer Tov. So we have this constant battle of do we follow after these thoughts of the good impulse, or Chas v'Shalom, the thoughts of the bad impulse, and we're in this constant war every day. We're doing good, we're doing bad. We're back and forth. So they switched the dynamic of the world. And then the world started going through this rapid decline. So Adam and Chava, they separated. They were divorced for 130 years after they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And then when they reunited, they had another son, Seth. And then Shes, he had a son, Enosh. So that's technically the third generation of mankind. And in that generation, like, mankind really got off track. And what happened was there was a vast knowledge back in those days of all the malachim, all the angels, and Hashem has created all these angels and appointed them all over all the natural phenomena. So, for instance, it's like one angel is in charge of the orbit of the sun, one angel is in charge of the orbit of the moon, the planets, the galaxies, the mazalos, like all the natural phenomena on Earth. Like there's an angel over the winds, angel over the ocean, so Hashem like created these angels, but it was Hashem's influence constantly in Hashem's will, Hashem's ratzon, that was dictating, like as it is now, like how nature works. Like it seems like it's just on this set automatic pattern, but Hashem's controlling it through these malachim. So then people decided to start worshiping these malachim, like worshiping the servants of the king instead of the king directly, and this becomes now avodah zarah in the world, and then it gets even more distorted as the generations keep coming on, and then all of a sudden, we get to like where they don't remember the names of the malachim anymore, and it's like the names of the quote unquote Egyptian gods or the Babylonian gods or the Persian gods or the Greek gods or the Roman gods until our age today. So the knowledge, the wisdom of like who, like Hashem appointed these malachim, that knowledge got lost somewhat from the world, and then it got more and more distorted. And then instead of just praying to Hashem, praying to this all-powerful, infinite being that has created us, that's sustaining the world, we live in this world of confusion now. So we live in a world of confusion. We don't see the world clearly through truth or lies, and it's just a mixture of good and evil, and it's just everything's very confusing. So the world kind of like just kept going through this downward pattern for the first 10 generations from Adam to Noach, and then Noach was the first step back. He brought manucha to the world. He brought comfort. The world he invented like farming tools, to help people, and started making people's lives easier. But unfortunately, what he didn't do was when Hashem told him, like, I'm going to destroy all the world, except for your family, and you'll just build this teva, this ark, with 2 of every kind of non-kosher animal and 7 pairs of the kosher animals. And then, for a year you'll be on the ark and you'll take care of all these animals. So why did he have to do that? He had to do that because when Hashem told him that he was going to wipe out all human life on the world, all the animal life, all the plant life, he's like, yeah, he was righteous himself. He was a tzaddik in his days, and he was building this teva for 120 years. So he was warning people, but he wasn't avidly trying to change people's view of the world. So the world was saved through his family, and then it's divided into his 3 sons and 70 grandchildren. And that becomes the 70 root nations of the world. So then the world starts deteriorating again after the flood. And it goes 10 generations now from Noah until Avraham. Okay, so the fear of the flood, it was a major thing on people's minds. I mean, people had great fear of Hashem and realized that, there was, if like the reason, for creation wasn't being fulfilled, Hashem was willing to wipe everything out and start again. And what Avraham rediscovered, so it's interesting. So how did Avraham rediscover the purpose of the world? And he did it, and this is why I'm calling him the first scientist. It's where he didn't receive the Torah from Hashem like what was going to be done later. He figured everything out by just studying and analyzing the world, which is basically the root of science. Science, I believe, I think it's the Greek word. It's either Greek or Latin. The Greek word for knowledge, and could be Latin, but it's like analyzing the world, studying the world. And Rambam in Yesodei Torah and his Mishnah Torah, he says this is very important. Like if a person really studies the world and studies all the phenomena on earth and in the heavens, a person can come to great yiras of Hashem. He'll be afraid to defy Hashem's word because he'll realize the massive power of this infinite being. And so too, he'll come to Achavas Hashem because he'll see like all the amazing things that Hashem has created in the world for all of us, and we'll grow to love Hashem because we'll appreciate all the beauty and all the amazing variety of life and everything that's in the world. So it's interesting because like you say, oh well, science isn't really like producing many Yirei Shemayim and Achavas Hashem. Scientists aren't. So it's one thing. Is like, are you really being truthful? Are you being truthful about what you're discovering? there's many aspects of science where it just undeniably proves, the existence of Hashem, but they don't want to see it yet. So, I mean, some do. I mean, some scientists are religious, some aren't. So let's talk about the condition of the world. So the first king was a king named Nimrod, and he was really the first king of the world. And he was using kind of the fear of the flood to manipulate people. And they began this project of building. Their initial plan is they wanted to build a city, and they wanted to build these 4 pillars. And basically, what they want to control, the world where they weren't dependent on Hashem. And the whole world was united. Everyone back in those days everyone spoke Lashon HaKodesh. I mean, it's called Hebrew today. There is a difference between Hebrew and Lashon HaKodesh. Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, is the language that the Torah is written in. It's the language that Hashem actually spoke that brings everything into creation. It's the names of Hashem, the 10 names of Hashem given in the Torah. And these names are used in the creation to create everything. And the world was united, in a sense, against Hashem. And there was just a handful of people: Avraham, Noah's son Shem, his grandson or great-grandson Aver, also, I think, Ashur. So it was a handful of people that weren't involved in this building project. And, and it was basically the world was united, which was good, but they were united not to come close to Hashem, but to try to not have to be dependent on Hashem. And this is really the world we're in right now. So we see, like, every generation, they're falling farther and farther away from Hashem. And it's strange because the Jewish people received the Torah, through Moshe Rabbeinu, through Moses. But in a sense, there's this idea of Yeridas Adoros, that every generation we're getting farther and farther away from that clarity of the Torah and that clear understanding of Hashem, and we're getting more confused as each generation goes on. We don't know the Torah as well, and then it's further confusing because, in a sense, there's like a modern day Tower of Babel project. And it's this idea of globalism. It's, the United Nations, European Union, all these organizations, this idea of this world government. But once again, they're not trying to unite the world to have a relationship with Hashem and come closer to Him. They're doing everything they can, to try to not be dependent on Hashem. And we see it in these, like, the GMOs, the genetically modified food. And they're trying to make the food so it's not dependent on rain so much, and they're not they want to be, like, once again, they want to be self-sufficient. They want to do whatever they want to do. They're overturning all the laws of the Torah, and it's the same attitude. It's just not following the blueprint for how Hashem created the world. So Avraham, he kind of changed, like, the direction of this, and he started the Jewish people. And why I'm calling him the first scientist is what he did is, through analyzing nature very carefully, he saw, okay, well, the sun's very powerful. The sun comes out every morning. The sun gives life. Maybe the sun is the creator. Maybe the sun's, the God. But then he says, oh, well, the sun, is weak because now the sun goes away every night. And then the moon comes out. So maybe the moon's more powerful than the sun. He says, oh, but the moon can be covered up with a cloud. So he just started seeing that as he analyzed deeper and deeper into the way the world worked, that it must be that there's one creator. There's one infinite being that's really directing all the complexity of nature. Now, how he did it, I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of incredible that he could learn the whole Torah through science, using possibly, like, the Eitz Das Tovara, using that as a vehicle, and somehow he learned all the Eitz Chaim, all the Tree of Life, all the Torah. I don't know exactly how he did it. Thankfully, we have the Torah, so we don't really need to do it that way. But now we kind of live in this world, And I'm kind of dealing with this every day because I teach physics and environmental science at yeshiva, and there's a real disconnect between, or there's not, or maybe say there's not really a really nice bridge right now to understand all the natural phenomenon clearly in the lens of the Torah. And what's also making everything so confusing is that for the last like 400 years or so, scientific technology is increasing rapidly. So our knowledge of how to harness the physical world is going up and up and up, whereas our knowledge of the Torah is going down and down and down. So now we're at a point in history we're at the lowest level of maybe understanding the Torah, and then we're almost at the highest level of scientific technology. So it's a huge gap right now. So then when Avraham discovers or finds, and then opens up a channel to begin to communicate with Hashem, he wants to tell the world about this. He wants to show the world that we've kind of fallen into this darkness, and it's just through the confusion of the knowledge of good and evil and not seeing the world clearly, we've kind of lost the clear knowledge of what the purpose of the world is. That Hashem's created the world, and that this infinite being, like, he wants, a close personal relationship with every person in the world. So Avraham made it his mission, and his wife Sarah helped him, that they started teaching the world about the existence of Hashem. And they started making students, and this becomes the beginning of the Jewish people. Now, what's interesting is, I believe where we are in history right now, it's very confusing, because what's going to happen is Hashem's going to give Avraham a command. He originally lived in Ur Kasdim, which was in, I think it's southern Iraq. And then there was 2 stages. So the first Lech Lecha, where Hashem says, leave your hometown, leave your country, leave your father's house. And so they go to Haran, which was possibly in Syria, somewhere around that area. So those 2 stages. So it was the first stage where they leave like the influence of Nimrod and this world government against Hashem, and Avraham begins his mission, the mission of the Jewish people, to bring Hashem into the world. Not into, the knowledge of Hashem more into the world, so we can see clearly, who's running the world. And then the second stage is where then Hashem says, I'm going to bring in this land, I'll show you, and he brings Avraham to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. And I think it's confusing right now, because I'm not sure if we're up to this Lech Lecha yet. I think we're in this period of the globalism and confusion, and maybe it's not until we get up to Mashiach ben Yosef and then Mashiach ben David, and those are the 2 phases possibly of Lech Lecha. But it seems confusing because there's millions of Jewish people that have gone back to Israel. But when it's the correct time, I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a clear command, from Hashem that it's time. So I don't think our golus is over. We do have the opportunity to live in the land of Israel, which is a great opportunity. I mean, it's the land of Kedusha, and it's a land just filled with holiness, and a person can be much closer to Hashem there. But it seems confusing, I think, because we're not really up to Lech Lecha yet. And hopefully we see it soon. All right, so those are some thoughts, on the Parsha. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Please help me out. Like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. And I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.